Hey, guys.
Hey, Andy, glad to see you.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello, Mr. Beck.
Good evening.
Did Bill get his computer fixed?
He was working on it. May have needed just to reboot it.
We have a chance to start on time. It seems like Bill. And I don't see general counsel either.
I'm here, Greg.
Oh, they are right under me. Okay.
You dressed up.
You're in disguise as an attorney. Okay, he's coming in now. Let's convene our regular meeting. Let's call it 6 o'clock, even though it's a minute after. And we'll have a quick summary of actions taken during our closed session by General Counsel Don Davis, please.
Thank you, President Hahn. The board did have one item in closed session, public employment, chief of police, but there is no reportable action at this time.
Thank you, sir. Will everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. May I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
I think that was Vice President Carlin and second by Director Quinn. Roll call vote, please, Ms. McEwen.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Hahn.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Our agenda is approved. Public comments on non-agenda items. Ms. McEwen, please.
Okay, let's get our. Sorry about that. Members of the public may address the board on matters not listed on this agenda. The board cannot take action on any item that is not on the agenda. The board or staff may briefly respond to statements made or questions posed, or may ask questions for clarification. These items may also be referred to staff or scheduled on a future agenda. There will be a separate opportunity for public comment for each item on the agenda. And we have no hands.
Okay. Carrying on with consent calendar. Back to you, Ms. McEwen.
Okay, consent items are considered routine and are intended to be acted upon in one motion without discussion. During this portion of the meeting, the consent calendar will be read aloud. Prior to approval, the president will give the board, staff, and public the opportunity to pull any item for discussion. The remaining calendar will be acted upon. Any pulled items will then be heard and acted upon individually. A, approve minutes of the December 9, 2021 regular board meeting. B, approve minutes of the December 21, 2021 special board meeting. C, accept annual disclosure of reimbursements and expenses for fiscal year 2020-21. D, accept the monthly investment report as of November 30, 2021. E, accept register of warrants for December 2021.
Would any member of the public wish to pull any of these items prior to consent?
There are no hands.
Staff members, anyone from staff? How about the board? Board members wish to pull an item?
No.
Very well. May I have a motion to approve our consent calendar, please?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion by Director Jensen, second by Vice President Carlin. Ms. McEwen.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Hahn.
Aye. Thank you, everyone. That motion carries 5-0. Disclosures by Board of Directors. You're getting your reading practice tonight, Christy.
Board members are asked to disclose any outside communications with individuals and organizations that have an action item on this agenda that pertains directly to them or their specific personal or private interests, and which communication is not included or disclosed in the agenda package, so that all interested persons have an equal opportunity to express and represent their interests.
Fellow directors, anything to disclose?
Nothing.
None.
None.
None for me. Very well, thanks, everyone. So item 11, presentation and acceptance of annual financial report. Item A under that is presentation of annual financial report, external audit as prepared by Fedak and Brown LLP.
Thank you, President Hahn. I'll just start by giving just a little synopsis of our audit process. So this is for the audit for fiscal year 2021 or transactions through June 30th, 2021. Staff began closing the books, by first closing the accounts payable process in September, and then recording, the accounting year-end entries to do all the necessary financial transactions. And then we worked remotely this year with our external auditor, Fedak and Brown. We conducted the final field work as well as the interim field work together in October. Worked very well with their staff. We didn't encounter any issues, and it was a very smooth process. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn over to Andy Beck, the partner with Fedak and Brown, and he has a presentation.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Jones.
you, Mr. Jones. I guess as far as the PowerPoint presentation, is that going to be shared by the district, or
Yep.
is that something that I should put on the screen?
Is it showing up?
I don't see it yet.
Okay, let me. I'm sorry, let me grab it here. Okay.
Here we
You see
go.
it? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, again, my name is Andy Beck with the firm of Fedak and Brown. And I would like to start with the independent auditor's report, which is located on page 1. Next slide, please. So on the independent auditor's report, going to the last paragraph, we give an opinion. In the case of the district, we give an unmodified clean opinion by saying that the financial statements are fairly stated. Next slide, please. Here we have a summary of the statements of net position. This statement shows that total assets were approximately $30.7 million, which is an increase of approximately $1.1 million. Deferred outflows of resources were $1.2 million, which is an increase of $227,000. And this balance consists of amounts related to net pension liability and offset by deferred inflows of resources, which were at $315,000, which is an increase of approximately $16,000. Total liabilities were at $10.1 million, which is an increase of $367,000. And on the bottom, you have the district's total net position, which is the district's net worth at $20.9 million, which is an increase of approximately $911,000. Now, this balance consists of the district's net investment in capital assets, which were at $17.4 million. And essentially, this consists of the district's capital asset, which are used in the district's current operations and not available for future use or future spending, I'm sorry. Restricted net position were at $2.2 million and unrestricted net position were at $1.4 million. And this is the amount that is available for future spending. Next slide, please. Here we have a summary of the statements of net or summary of statements of activity, which is on the full accrue basis. On the middle of the page, total revenues were at $11.2 million, which is an increase of approximately $2.2 million. Total expenses were at $10.3 million, which is an increase of $811,000. And again, all of this increasing your net position by $911,000. Next slide, please. We also provide a management report consisting of our communication with those charged with governance. In the case of the district, that would be the board of directors, and our communication of control deficiencies. Next slide, please. In our communication with those charged with governance, we are required to communicate any significant estimates or sensitive note disclosures. Now, in the case of the district, cash and investments, capital assets, and net pension liability were all significant estimates and sensitive note disclosures. There were no difficulties encountered in performing the audit. There are no disagreements with management and no management consultation with other independent accountants. Next slide, please. In our communication of control deficiencies, we noted no material weaknesses and no significant deficiencies. Next slide, please. So to summarize, the district received an unmodified clean opinion, which is the highest opinion that you could get. Net position increased by approximately $911,000. Total revenues increased by $2.2 million and total expenses decreased by approximately $811,000. I would like to conclude by thanking all the staff at the district. And on the next slide, I could take a moment now to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Beck. We'll go to members of the public. Do members of the public have any questions for Mr. Beck?
Sorry, I have no hands.
Thank you. Board members, Director Grace.
Don't have any questions, just to comment. We did obviously look at this in Finance Committee and took the committee members' questions and comments into account in Mr. Beck's final preparation of the slide deck. So appreciate his help and appreciate Hamid's and his staff's hard work to get this pulled together. It looks good.
Thank you, sir. Director Jensen,
No questions, sir.
Director Quinn,
I have no questions. Thank you.
Vice President Carlin.
I want to mirror John Grace's comments as well. Thank you, Ahmed and staff, for another clean year of audit and the hard work that that was actually put into it. It's a very extensive, detailed report, and I read every bit of it. And great report. Thank you.
I second that, Mr. Beck, and I also appreciate the simpleness of the slides you put together, just to cut and dry. Here's the bottom line. So I like that as well. Is there any other discussion or comments before I ask for a motion to accept this report? Very well, board may have a motion to accept this report.
I'll make that motion, Mr. President. Motion to accept.
Second.
Should we read the motion here? Yeah. Let's do it official.
I move that the Board of Directors adopt Resolution 21/22-21 and accept the annual financial report, external audit, as prepared and presented by Fedak and Brown LLP, and authorize staff to file as required.
Second.
Motion by Director Grace, second by Vice President Carlin. Roll call vote, please, Ms. McEwen.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Han.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Item 12 is the action items, and A under that is adopt resolution 21/22-22, authorizing the continued use of teleconferencing accessibility procedures for public meetings. Mr. Davis, please.
Thank you, President Han. Since October, the district has been operating under modified procedures to the Brown Act that allow us to do these remote meetings when there's an emergency, including a situation like the current COVID-19 pandemic. However, under state law, we have to make findings every 30 days regarding the continuation of such emergencies. So the resolution before you today makes those findings. I think we had all hoped that 2022 would change things a little bit, but unfortunately the Omicron variant has had continuing significant impacts. And so for the foreseeable future, we will probably have this same resolution at upcoming board meetings, but we do recommend the adoption so that both the board and committees as needed can use these remote meeting procedures that are available to us. Thank you, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you, sir. To the public, any questions from the public?
There's one hand. Okay. Jiva?
Ms. Freebert, welcome in.
Yes, thank you very much. Last meeting, I had sent an email when I couldn't connect with you, and I never did get a response because I thought part of this AB thing was to allow email to be part of the conversation when people couldn't get in. So is there any change in that, or was that something that was missed, or is that something you're watching and monitoring the email per the requirements? Thank you.
Thank you, Jiva.
Would you like me to respond to that, President Han? I think we kind of touched on this at prior meetings, but just to clarify that the AB 361 only requires if we have a technical glitch, whereas the remote capabilities aren't available to people. Email is an optional procedure, as we discussed. It's certainly helpful to get information, but it's not a required procedure under the law. So again, it's a courtesy to the public to provide comments via email, but it's not something that's required. Or if an email system was down, that would not preclude our meetings. If the internet crashed, though, and we couldn't broadcast and people could not speak to us like the speaker just did, then we would not be able to continue with the meeting, but email falls outside of that.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other hands up in the public?
There are none.
Excuse me. Very well. Director Grace,
I had no comments, sir.
Director Jensen,
None, sir.
Director Quinn,
No comment.
Vice President Garland.
None.
None for me. Shall we have a motion to adopt this resolution, please?
Move that the board. Go ahead.
Okay, I move that the board adopt resolution number 21/22-22, authorizing the general manager to continue to implement and utilize teleconference accessibility procedures to conduct public meetings pursuant to Assembly Bill number 361.
Second.
Motion by Director Quinn, second by Vice President Carlin. Roll call vote, please.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Han.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Item B under action items is adopt resolution 21/22-23, authorizing the general manager as contracting officer on the Union Bank account. Mr. Jones, if you would please.
Thank you, President Han. The district still has a operating checking account with Union Bank. Although primarily the Bank of the Sierra checking account is used, we do still have some outstanding checks under our Union Bank account. And so until the time that we can go through the proper protocols of clearing outstanding checks, this account remains open. Union Bank does require a new contract to be executed because of my departure. So it's recommended that the general manager be listed or authorized as the contracting officer in order to make the necessary changes to the authorized signers on the account. And with that, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions from the public?
There are none.
Director Grace.
I'll just say, and I mentioned it during finance yesterday, Hamid, thank you for your service. You've been an asset to the CSD and the service of this valley, and you will be sorely missed. So do wish you well in your future endeavors, but just want to say that. So
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Director Jensen.
I have no questions about this motion, and I echo Director Grace. Hamid, you've done a great job. You're always so helpful with IT stuff, and you definitely will be missed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Director Quinn.
I have nothing. Thank you, and hail and farewell to Hamid.
Thank you, sir. Vice President Carlin.
Oh, echo Director Jensen's and Grace's comments. You know where to find you though, Hamid. So yeah, you're only 20 minutes away. So thank you for your hard work and your efforts.
Thank you, Jay. I echo everything they said. It's not going to have the same effect as if we were in the room together, but could I ask for a round of applause from everyone for Hamid Jones?
indeed.
Thank you.
Any parting words you'd like to say?
I was going to hold it for later during my staff report.
Okay.
Okay.
That works. That works. Then I think we're ready for a motion to adopt this resolution, please.
Move the Board of Directors adopt resolution 21/22-23, authorizing the general manager as contracting officer on the Union Bank account.
Second.
I think it's a motion by Vice President Carlin, a second by Director Jensen. I think it was. Roll call vote, please.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Han.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Item C under action items, adopt resolution 21/22-24, authorizing the check signers with Bank of the Sierra. Again, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, President Han. Bank of the Sierra requires a resolution authorizing the new and current check signers before they will send us a new signature card to make the relevant changes. So this resolution will be authorizing General Manager Bill Malinan, Assistant to the General Manager Christy McEwen, and the Interim Chief of Police Jeffrey Kermode as the current authorized signers with Bank of the Sierra. And with that, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Members from the public, Christie,
There are none.
Director Grace,
No additional comments, sir.
Director Jensen,
No questions.
Director Quinn,
Nothing.
Vice President Carlin. You probably said no, but you muted, so I wasn't sure. Vice President Carlin, do you have anything for this? Good. I have nothing, and I'll entertain a motion.
I move the Board of Directors adopt Resolution 21/22-24, authorizing the opening of a bank account with Bank of the Sierra.
Second.
Wait,
Is that not right? That doesn't sound right.
that's an incorrect motion on that staff report. Hamid, would you give,
Yeah, you are
provide the
correct.
correct?
I must have missed that. It should be the same as the recommendation up above authorizing the check signers.
So I move the Board of Directors adopt Resolution 21/22-24, authorizing the aforementioned check signers for the Bank of the Sierra account.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Right.
Second.
That first motion will be rescinded. This motion is on the floor. It's made by Director Jensen and seconded by Director Quinn. Roll call vote, please.
Director Grace,
Aye.
Director Jensen,
Aye.
Director Quinn,
Aye.
Vice President Carlin,
Aye.
President Han.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. That brings us to line item 13, information and discussion items. The first item A is 2022 board committee assignments. Last month I requested if someone really hated the committee they were on, they could let me know and I'll try to switch them around. I got nothing back from anyone. So my decision is to just keep the committees the same as they were for last year. And that I think the big benefit is continuity of officers on those committees. Any comments from the public on that?
None.
Comments from the board? Director Grace,
No comment.
Director Jensen,
None, sir.
Director Quinn,
Nothing.
Vice President Carlin.
And for me,
I commented enough on it. Board comments, Director Grace, we're up to you.
Nothing for me, sir.
Director Jensen.
I just have one comment. It's more of a community awareness sort of thing. On January 20th, the Kern Council of Governments will be having a meeting to discuss the approval of a traffic circle or a roundabout at the intersection of Bear Valley Road and Cummings Valley Road as the main inlet for our community. I think everyone should know about that. If you want to make your opinions known about it, you can email Supervisor Scrivener at district2@kerncounty.com. If you want more information on this, you can go to www.kerncog.org. That's the Kern Council of Governments. The public hearing for this will be on January 20th at 6:30 p.m. You can go online and view the hearing as well, just like we do with these meetings. And that's it. If you're interested in the topic or you want to make your opinions known, whether you love traffic circles or you hate them, let them know.
Thank you. I'm glad to know about that. I appreciate that, Director Jensen. Director Quinn, you have the floor.
I have nothing. I just want to reiterate congratulations and thanks to Hamid for his years of service to the district.
Thank you, sir. Vice President Carlin.
no, again, I echo Director Quinn's comments about Hamid. I did have it there. He's probably one of the best ones that I've seen that held that seat. Very honest, high integrity person. So wish you the very best, and your future endeavors over 20 miles away from us in the city of Tehachapi. And second, I just really want to shout out. We went through one of the largest snowstorms, and the diversities that we have with some of the equipment. I want to thank Daniel's group, for at least getting us all plowed out some of it where people might not think that you work fast enough, but I applaud your efforts on, especially on all the surface roads and all the incidents and the accidents that occurred there. Of course, there were lessons learned to be takeaway, and each time we do this, I'm sure we'll get tremendously better on that process. So thank you, Daniel, and your group. Those are all the comments I have at the moment.
Thank you, sir. I have nothing to add, but echo all of it. Staff reports is item C, and the first is department heads, finance report, and that is to you again, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, President Hahn. The item before you is the monthly finance activity report. It should read for the period 5, which is the month of November. I don't have anything significant to report on these, but I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you, sir. Questions or comments from the public?
There are none.
Thank you, Christy. Director Grace,
Nothing this evening, sir.
Director Jensen,
None, sir.
Director Quinn,
Nothing.
Vice President Carlin.
Nothing.
And I have nothing. Is this the opportunity you'd like to take, Mr. Jones?
Yes, please. Thank you. I just want to thank the board, Bill, Christy, Chief Kermode, and all of the staff here, as well as all the committee members and the community for all of the support for nearly the last 4 years. It's been a pleasure working here and working for you and the community. I hope that I'm leaving it in better shape than when I started. And I wish nothing but success for the board, for the staff, and for the community going forward. And I really appreciate the opportunity that I was given here. So thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Jones. Appreciate that. Public Works.
Mr. President, members of the board, you have the report. I would just point out, one of our fun things is the ongoing sign auctions, where we again put remaining signs out of phase 1 up and garnered another $800. So we're up to $1,700, or approximately 42 new signs. So that's great news. I appreciate the support from the community. There obviously are details relative to the rest of the operations, including the storm, and a big shout out to the BVSA who assisted us. I want to piggyback on Director Carlin's comments, but also want to do a shout out to Larry and Joe and the folks that maintain the equipment, because they were busy trying to keep things running. And we know they put in long and extra hours. So thank you to them as well.
And
Otherwise, we stand for any questions.
thank you, sir. Didn't the BVSA jump in with a couple of feet too?
Yes, that's what I was trying to say, is they helped us out with a couple of trucks and plows and people. Yes.
Team effort. Very well done. Questions, comments from the public?
There are none.
Director Grace.
I'd just like to say, and Bill, I mentioned it in our one-on-one, would just really like to commend Megan specifically, but also the new software platform that we have to allow interaction and feedback from the public, and especially the after action report. That was extremely impressive. Not only in the way it was presented, the writing and the comprehensive summary, but also the findings. Some of the candidly speaking, some of the shortcomings and places that the district can get better at reacting to a situation like this snowstorm. So, or actually 2 storms, but I think the first was the opportunity where some of the major issues were brought to light and identified. So I won't be long-winded, but I did want to say I think it's a great, for a little bit of money, we got a great way to interact with the public through the new platform, and I look forward to many more. Don't look forward to many more snowstorms, but look forward to many more opportunities to utilize that to get better and to provide the service that we are mandated to provide. So I'll leave it at that.
Well stated. Director Jensen.
Yeah, no comments.
Thank you, sir. Director Quinn.
I can't add anything to Director Grace's comments.
Very well. Public Works Report, Vice President Carlin.
No additionals for me. Thank you.
All right, lots of good things happening in Bear Valley Springs. Very well. Public Safety Report, Chief Kermode.
Thank you, President Hahn and Board of Directors. You have the November Public Safety Report in front of you. One thing I'd like to point out is on the second page of the report, I continued what I started last month, trying to add some additional notes with some specifics to hopefully address questions that you might have. I would like to thank Director Jensen for questioning the response time in last month's report. And I did send him my calculations, and I did make an error. I was traveling and I didn't check my work, and that would explain why the response time seemed so low for the month of October. So I appreciate Director Jensen's attention to detail on that, but be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, sir. Public Safety Report, questions, comments from the public.
There are none.
All right, Director Grace.
Mr. President, I actually had two questions. Chief, the first, with regard to the 11 traffic stops and the 7-minute response time, I think I know the answer to the question, but if you can enlighten me as to why there were only 11 stops and why the response time. I know we did have 2 significant snow events and the duration of the impact was significant, but if I could get your response on that. And then I did have one follow-up as well.
Certainly. In all fairness, I don't know that snow was responsible for the traffic stops in October or in November. I mean, the real snow hit us in December. So
I apologize. I was reading this as the December statistics. So
yep. So
that would indicate an even more significant question on my part as to why in November the significant just, I mean, that's one stop every 3 days. So
correct. And that's why I wanted to point that out as much as
I appreciate that.
Point to the snow as a reason, but the prior month, October, the stops and citations were up, and I think that was a result of the prior board meeting and getting the message to Sergeant Hurst, who gets the message to the officers to step it up, and they did that month. We also had school in effect for the whole month of October. So there was a lot of attention being paid to the school buses and such. And then moving into November, I know we were dealing with illnesses, so being even shorter staffed than we normally are. But I do not have a good direct answer other than they were not making the stops. And the message continues to be to make the traffic stops. And when I prepared this report, I talked to Sergeant Hurst about it. So I will anticipate that next month you'll see the stops back up again. But I don't have a good answer other than staffing. You know, in December, because of illnesses, you know, you'll see that next month you'll see, well, I don't know if you'll see it, but in December I had definitely cover some patrol shifts. And they were doing during the snow period. And so I can certainly tell you, I did not make any traffic stops on those days that I was covering the shifts, but I just don't have a good direct answer. My expectation is when the officers are not doing other things, then they should be out there making traffic stops.
All right, I appreciate your candor. The other question is actually one I asked at the last meeting. It has to do with the elk that was hit. I believe that goes back to November. It was certainly before the last meeting we had. Was there a citation issued, and what was that for ultimately? This is an individual that went around the signalization and ultimately hit the animal.
Correct. There was a citation issued, but I don't have the violation available to me, but there was a citation issued.
Okay, if there's a way you could follow up with Bill and he can reach out to me, I'd really like to know what the ultimate disposition of that was.
Certainly, I'll definitely do that.
All right. Thank you, Mr. President. That's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Director Jensen, the floor is yours.
Just a couple of things, sir. I appreciate you correcting the times on that. The net result of that was really insignificant. I mean, the difference between the first time and then the recalculated time. My bigger concern with the average response time globally is how misleading they really are. And I'll give you a few examples. For October, there were 7 barking dog calls. Each averaged a response time of 92 seconds. Yet there was a missing person investigation that took a response time of 63.3 minutes, which is over an hour. And then for November, we had 4 barking dog calls with an average of 9.4 minutes. But then we had an attempted suicide of a response time of 50.8 minutes. So I think my point with this is, why are we using these numbers when they're just plain misleading? And many of the times in here appear to me like they might be telephonic responses. They're not actual in-person responses. Like, you've got ambulance requests that have an average of 16-second responses, or see the subject calls of seconds instead of minute, 53 seconds. I mean, these seem to be calls that are handled telephonically and not in person, which is not what I think of as a response time. Wonder if you could address that.
Well, thank you, Mr. Jensen. As far as the numbers, those we rely on, as you know, from Kern County Sheriff. So if there is a error in a response time, that the computer in the officer's car, when he hits the on scene button, if for some reason that doesn't register, that can contribute to some of the longer response times on some of those incidents. As far as whether a telephonic response should be considered a response time, I would counter with the fact that if a resident has requested service from us and the dispatcher provides the information to the officer, and the officer is able to respond to the caller telephonically and resolve the caller's issue, I think that is a response time, that the caller has called, we have responded, we've dealt with their issue. In this COVID world, I think if we can handle a call via telephone and resolve it, I think that's acceptable. I believe in a prior meeting, you yourself asked about online reporting, which we don't have a platform for at this time. If it can be handled by phone and be handled quickly and safely, I think that's even more efficient and better customer service than online reporting. So I understand the concern. If I had access to a CAD system similar to what I've had in prior agencies, I could manage these numbers much better, but I don't have the ability to do that. So as long as I'm directed by the general manager to continue to report response times, I don't know of another methodology to use at the moment, and I'm definitely open to suggestions on a more accurate way to reflect response times.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that answer. My other issue is, so going back to the storms we just had, there were a lot of vehicles that were just left in traffic, and one of which was literally left blocking half of a lane for more than 2 days. And I'm wondering if that's a takeaway from that storm that we're going to remedy, because in my world, a vehicle should not be left in a lane, you know, for 2 hours, let alone 2 days. It's a safety hazard. It's a liability. It's poor risk management. And your comments on that?
I agree with you completely. It was one of the issues we discussed in an extensive storm debriefing with all of the road staff and the general manager and PD and gate staff. After that first storm, which actually occurred the same day we were doing the police chief interview panels, we held an extensive debriefing. And then prior to the second round of storms, we actually had a pre-storm meeting where we planned for the storm. We talked about the lessons learned from the prior storm, and our goal would certainly be, as the staffing allows and the availability of tow trucks, to get those vehicles cleared out of the roadway as soon as possible. And I think you saw a significant improvement during that second round of storms from the first round of storms. That round of storms on the interview day, multiple cars that were impacting the traffic lanes. But when you have one officer on duty, or even in that case, 2 officers on duty, and you're trying to control that traffic on Domino Hill, as soon as you pull an officer now to stand by for the tow truck, now you're down to the one responding officer, and that becomes the challenge. But following that first storm, that was an emphasis to try and get those cars cleared as quickly as possible.
Are any of our volunteers trained to fill out CHP 180s for towing and storage? I mean, you know, maybe we could have employed some of them to, you know, go at least to a certain location where tow trucks can take the cars, and then volunteers can fill out the forms and have them signed off by the tow truck so the cars can be sent away.
And Director Carlin might be able to correct me. I don't believe that we've ever used our volunteers for doing the vehicle storages.
Okay.
That's correct. We have never filled out the forms. We have been on site, you know, to assist the driver, but we've never ever filled out any forms when they hauled them away.
Okay.
Because most of the time, the owner was with the vehicle. So I don't know if there's a form that has to be filled out if the owner's with it and the tow truck's pulling it.
Not necessarily. If it's an owner's request, then
Correct.
you know the owner can just direct the tow driver to take the car away. If the person says, I'm not going to pay to have it towed, or the person's just not there, like in some of the cases, then that's when you would fill out the form.
Right, it's very similar to like a DUI checkpoint.
Yeah.
But I'm very aware of how the form is to be completed. We used to fill them out. But however, we had to have an elevated officer, a peace officer, sign off on it. You know, before it was towed, a volunteer couldn't sign off on it.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
And other than echoing Director Grace's disappointment in the number of traffic stops and citations, and it looks like what, 1 or 2 moving violations, which I don't know, unless the 22,350 was the one associated with the elk, I don't see anything for you know, passing an emergency vehicle with lights on. So I'd be curious to find the answer to that question too. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Director Quinn.
Chief, I've covered this or I've discussed it before, and I'm curious as to whether or not there's been a frequent reiteration to the officers about the desirability for friendly relations with the public, like slowing down. If they're not doing anything except driving around and they happen to see folks walking on the side of the road, do they stop and say, hi, how's it going? I'm Officer so-and-so and hope you're having a good day and hope you'll let me know if there's any problem. And just a friendly smile, a wave, flicking a high beam or something like that to acknowledge that we're all kind of in this together. Does that happen? Because I think that would go along. It would be nice if this became a community that was known for having a very friendly, serious, but friendly police department.
I think I won't say I think, I know the expectation to have the friendly and positive interactions with the public have been communicated, and we get a lot of positive feedback on that. As far as maybe stopping and talking to an individual that's walking down the road, sometimes that doesn't work out as well as we might expect. But I know it's a common occurrence for officers that are driving on one of our residential streets to stop and talk to somebody about, you know, the travel trailer they have and ask them questions about it and talk about camping or that type of thing. And in the better weather seasons, there's an expectation that, you know, if you're driving past the ball field and there's a game going on, get out and, you know, talk to the parents and talk to the public, watch a little bit of the game, or stop by the Whiting Center and talk to the people that are there. So that is a clearly communicated expectation. And I know that one of the things that all the officers that work here note is how pleasant it is to be in a community where the residents wave at them in a friendly way when they drive by in a patrol car, and the expectation that they return that courtesy to the member of the public. So it is at the core of the culture I tried to establish when I was chief here last time, to have that positive interaction with folks.
Okay, great. Thank you, Chief.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Vice President Carlin, Public Safety Report.
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the hard work, Chief. Appreciate it. And that's all from me on that. General Counsel report, Mr. Davis.
Thank you, President Han. The board is going to be copied on a letter tomorrow, likely to certain officials with Cal Recycle and Kern County Public Works. And I don't think this issue has really been on your radar, so I want to give a little background to it, and we'll see where things go. But a few years ago, the state of California, in its efforts to reduce or continue to reduce solid waste at landfills, adopted organic waste recycling provisions under a bill called SB 1383. It's taken a number of years to go into effect, but this year is sort of the kickoff year for implementation of a lot of the measures. Last year, General Manager Malinan had some meetings with Cal Recycle and with Kern County officials. And let me back up a second. The regulations are directed at jurisdictions that provide solid waste collection services. And the gist of the regulations are, with respect to organic waste, that you can add different color barrels, or you can put organic waste in a mixed barrel, provided it went to a certain type of facility. So the key to these regulations is whether you're a jurisdiction that provides solid waste collection services. And in meetings last year with Cal Recycle and Kern County, there seemed to be a sense that we were a jurisdiction, and the officials were talking to Mr. Malinan about how we were going to implement these regulations, but they never identified how we were actually a jurisdiction under these regulations. And in reviewing the regulations with the general manager, it's my opinion we do not fall under these regulations as a jurisdiction, because the district never has provided solid waste collection services in barrels or containers, or public self-hauls to the transfer facility, but that's not a collection service. And so we're making that point to the officials, and we are asking for a written determination from them as to if they think we are a jurisdiction, to explain how that interpretation can be under the regulations that clearly talk about collection services using containers, not a transfer facility where residents self-haul, because the upshot would be potentially we have to place containers throughout the district and have them collected. That's absurd, and that can't be an interpretation. There are also exemptions. I don't want to get into those, but it's been disappointing that public officials don't seem to understand their own regulations in our case, and perhaps because we're unique, because we are a large special district and we have this facility, but the regulations were not intended for transfer station operations and the type of activities we do with respect to solid waste. So we'll see what response we get, and we'll give you further briefing. But again, I don't think that had been discussed in detail, and just wanted to provide some background before you saw this in your inbox. Thank you.
Sir. All right. General Counsel report, questions from the public, comments, questions, public?
There are none.
Director Grace.
Yeah, Don, I just had a quick question. You mentioned the exemptions, and I'm aware of those. I think all the board members are in our discussions with Bill. Without going into the detail of what those are, is there a strategic reasoning on your part as to why you would try to get this, rather than just proceed with trying to get the exemptions, why you would try to get this determination? I mean, do you feel like there's a high likelihood they will make that determination that we are not a
well, yes, no, excellent question. And my rationale on this is that, the first is, does the statute even apply to you?
right?
And I don't believe it does. And I'm just frankly shocked that they've been treating us this way. And even Kern County officials kind of shrug their shoulders and say, well, it's debatable. It's not debatable. You have a statute that says solid waste collection services, which we do not provide. If they have some interpretation that a transfer facility falls under that, they need to state that, and then let's look at that. You're correct, though, as a backup position, should they make that determination, should we not wish to challenge it, then there are exemptions too for high altitude and population and things like that, which kind of support the whole idea that, a jurisdiction like ourselves, or I shouldn't use that word, a special entity like ourselves, shouldn't be subject to the jurisdictional requirements there. There are other things that apply to us, but not those particular provisions, because then we'd be putting out barrels when we don't even give barrels to our residents for general solid waste or recyclables. So that is the thinking, but there are fallbacks. So I don't think we're going to get there, but I really want to push the officials to provide an explanation as to thinking, which they've never done in conversations with Bill. There was just sort of an assumption that, yeah, you're a jurisdiction.
And I apologize if I missed it, but is the letter directed to county officials or is this going to the state? Who makes
It's
this
going to
determination?
both, because Bill's been meeting with both.
Gotcha,
Because Kern County has some role in this as well.
gotcha.
And
Okay.
they've been part of it. They've been somewhat sympathetic, but have not stepped up really and said, why Cal Recycle, you're talking to them as if they're a jurisdiction here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Director Grace. Director Jensen,
No questions, sir.
Director Quinn,
No questions, thank you.
Vice President Garland.
No questions for me either.
None from me either. Last item under C is General Manager Report. Mr. Malinan.
Mr. President, members of the board, starting with project updates for you and the public. Our tree grant project is going to be coming to a close. We have probably 2 more what we call task order areas. We had initially identified 10. We should be able to get through 7 with the money provided by the $1 million grant. We should also be able to afford to get the logs down off of the mountain, delivered to the wastewater plant and chipped, and then redistributed not only as landscaping for that facility, but others around the CSD. And who knows, maybe enough to get beyond our own needs and maybe assist the association with some of their landscaping. So we're getting close to closure. I think we will have met our initial expectations of having treated over 300 acres of private property and removed the fire hazard fuel. So that's the whole goal. And I think it's appropriate for us to subsequently take a look at it. Maybe we have an interest in doing it again. I'm sure, given that there were additional areas and properties that we weren't going to be able to get to with this initial grant, that we probably have folks that would be happy if we could do it again. And I think our approach and our system is working out well. So that's where that project is at. Our water system request for proposals, I think I've mentioned that before, where we will ask engineering consultants to assess our water system and how do we go about rehabilitating and or replacing and addressing a 50-year-old pipeline system. We'll be on the February infrastructure committee meeting, so that is moving forward. The survey for the entry gate reconfiguration program has been authorized, and I've heard they're here. So that is taking a look at the right-of-way of Bear Valley Road from Cumberland down to Cummings Valley. So that is moving forward. With that information, we'll be able to take a look at where and why we might relocate the gates and the gatehouse and expand upon the entryway, make it better and safer. So that's starting. We completed the Parks and Rec grant with the association. So as you recall, they were looking to put a project. It is a covered sports pavilion down at the park. We have the grant. They did execute the agreement with us. So they will be paying for all the costs associated with it, but the money will flow through us and to them So that is underway, and we'll keep you posted as that moves. An update on equipment. As you know, we ordered 3 of the large plow trucks. We have received 1. The second one, I think, is coming in the next week or 10 days. The third is coming probably in the next 3 weeks. So hopefully, knock on some wood here, that we don't need them. Like I said, the general services crew, our mechanical crew, has done great work. We're piecing together as best we can, as I understand it, to keep the plows out there going, so Daniel and his crew can do their work. Those 2 new vehicles coming and the 3 total is going to make a big difference long term for the ability to get rid of these snow storms. We did have a liaison meeting today with the association, and just really quick update. There were a couple of items I thought to share. First was they brought forward at least the concept that they're talking about, and certainly we'll see some more, but of a mulligan room expansion. And a part of that for the district is the right of way for Rolling Oaks Drive, and whether and when and how that needs to be addressed, i.e. abandoned as a road right of way. So, but maybe the exciting news is the expansion of the mulligan room to serve the community better. We also had a pretty good conversation, and this was really something that began as Wes and I were meeting, and the conversation was about the development of a community plan. So it's just the planning exercise that will engage the community and will hopefully help identify where the community wishes to go over the next decade at least, things that they may want to see happen and things that they may wish to avoid happening. Can be discussed and brought into a process wherein the community and ultimately our board of directors and their board of directors can sign off and come to some level of agreement about it, so that where there is perhaps as a pre-planned approach, an acknowledgement or recognition some things aren't really suitable in Bear Valley Springs, and some could be embraced with certain conditions, if that makes sense. So real preliminary, we'll need to follow up with the idea based on the liaison conversation. There seemed to be support to move forward, at least start with an outline of, okay, how does this work? I would tell you that the approach will be really extensive in getting people to engage and get involved and be a part of the process. I think that's a real positive for the community, but it's going to take a while as well. So it's not just something we wrap up in a couple of months. So those were 2 things out of the liaison meeting. We've had some good progress on our wastewater treatment plant permitting, specifically the designation of the Sycamore Canyon as ephemeral, i.e. only receives flow from precipitation. And so we're excited about that. I think things are going to be moving a little bit quicker now between that and what we are doing on a Title 22 study that is required by the state, so that we hopefully will get our permit here. I'm going to suggest by the summer. Whether that's overly optimistic, I'm not sure yet. Report on our rehabilitation of potable wells 31 and 32. The work has been done. The samples have been taken down to be analyzed, and we have yet to get the reports. I understand it's an 8-week process. We're about 6 into it. So if those and when those come back positively, and we don't have any of the contaminant levels that perhaps have bothered us before, those wells could go back into the system, and that will be a significant boost to our production. Speaking of that, we are going to be bringing forward, hopefully at the February infrastructure and then the subsequent board meeting, a package to go out for bids on the rehabilitation of 4 more potable wells in our system. Wells number 1, 2, 3, and 4, some of the early and original wells. And we will begin to take a look at them and see if the quality of the water, once we've seen what the condition of the casing is and so on, we pull the motor, pull the pump. If they're worthy of being rehabilitated more, this is part of our capital improvement plan that the board has approved. So we have the funding available, and this is part of moving forward with it. So we're excited about that. We'll be seeing more of that in the next couple of months. And then lastly, I haven't had the opportunity to publicly say during this meeting anyway. I did clap though for Hamid Jones, and I know I've had the opportunity and good fortune to work with him really closely. I think our budgeting efforts and improvements, our improvements in financial reporting, particularly appreciate the efforts because, as the board knows, our water study was a very large, complicated study and done with an engineering firm, but both Hamid and I, and then Don Davis, spent a lot of time putting that together. Subsequently, Hamid and I and internal staff did the studies for the sewer rate adjustment and the solid rate adjustment. And it's a lot of work, and he did a lot of work with the modeling, and I really appreciate it. And so I'm going to miss him a lot. A couple terms, I guess I would say this is Hamid. He's diligent, he's conscientious, he's respectful, and he's professional. And that's why somebody else wants him to. So best wishes for you. And we're going to miss you. You know that. We keep telling you that ever since you told us you wanted to leave. And so this is my last chance to say, please don't. But if you do, best of wishes and luck. So that's my wrap, sir.
Well stated, sir. General Manager report, questions, comments from the public.
There are none.
Director Grace.
Yeah, Bill, obviously, again, echo everything you said about Hamid. One of the things I mentioned during finance committee a couple of days ago, was not only his skill fiscally and financially, but the way he represents the district to the public on camera during these Zoom meetings and in all other capacities. Just a great portrayal of what the district does and the best possible interface with our residents and our ratepayers, and that's been much appreciated. So again, echo everything you said there. I did also want to mention there's been a lot of talk about snow and the snowstorm. I wanted to say great job as regards to solving the plow issue, especially during that second storm. I had either the fortune or misfortune, however you look at it, of being on Bear Valley Road in the height of that second storm. And lo and behold, sat there and watched 3 snowplows drive by, having known that we only had one. So that was curious. And then come to find out, you and your team were able to coordinate some efforts with the district, or rather with the association, I should say, to bootstrap it and get the job done, even in light of our difficulties in getting these equipment deliveries. So again, that's a great job and a great interface with the association to solve problems, and really appreciate that. So I'll leave it at that. Great report. Thank you. Thank you for all your efforts.
Mr. President, if I might, there was a ponderance, I think, from Mr. Jones as to whether or not we're in a better position than when he arrived. And I want everybody to know that we are. Thank you. We are. And you're a big part of that. So there's no doubt in your mind.
Well said. Director Jensen, the floor is yours.
And no comments, sir.
Thank you, sir. Director Quinn.
Nothing to add. Thank you, Bill, and thank you for the rest of the staff for great reporting.
Thank you, sir. Vice President Carlin.
Great report, Bill. Thank you. And echo all your comments about Hamid. And I would agree very much so that we are in a better position today than we were when he first started. And we still know where you're going. Anyway, Hamid, we'll find you. And I don't like UCLA.
Here, here,
Okay,
to all your comments, including the last one.
yeah. Agree with everything, nothing to take away. Thank you all. Thank you, Hamid, especially, and it's definitely better than when you got here. Right, that concludes the staff reports, future agenda items. Miss McEwen.
I did not have anything to include on the agenda, and I have nothing to add that came up during the meeting unless I missed something.
I didn't have anything written down either, so that concludes that. Brings us to adjournment. I want to thank, there were about 12 people from the public in our meeting today, and I appreciate all their efforts and contributions. Thank you, staff. Thank you, board colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Good
Happy
luck
New Year.
and best wishes.
Have
Ta-ta,
a
we're
good night.
adjourned. Crack.
Good night.
Happy wild card.
And take care, everyone. Goodbye, Ahmed. Good luck.
Thank you.